Hello everyone, my name is Seth Brown, and I'll be arguing that economic and other forms of interdependence cannot create world peace because there is no way to stop actors from using violence to achieve their goals. These actors could be states that decide to go to war, or non-state actors that arise to use violence to obtain their objectives. World peace is a goal that everyone should embrace, but avoiding conflict is something to this point that has proven to be impossible. Why is that? Interdependence does come off as a valid idea on paper, with nations intertwining their governments to depend on each other, which in turn creates a relationship where each side wants to see the other thrive and maintain peace. What is missing, however, is how much interdependence is needed to maintain peace. It is not likely that all nations will become players in a transnational union, so how much interdependence is enough? To discuss this, I have four possible scenarios to contemplate. The first is, what happens when a participating state feels they are not receiving a fair deal out of an interdependent relationship? The second is, what happens when two states that do not recognize interdependence are in a violent conflict? Do interdependent nations stay out of this if they have nothing at stake, or do they negotiate with these warring states? The third scenario is, who has the task of ensuring that non-state groups do not become violent? There is no way to keep people with common interests or concerns from grouping up and potentially gaining influence with violence. The final scenario is, what happens when negotiations break down within an interdependent relationship? Now, for real-world examples to support my claim that there is no way to stop actors from using violence to achieve their goals. The first example is Great Britain. Great Britain decided to leave the European Union, which is a transnational system based on interdependence liberalism. And this was caused by several factors, but it boils down to a lack of sovereignty. According to John Malden from Forbes, the United Kingdom left because of economic concerns, such as the Greek buyout, security concerns such as terrorism or immigration, and a fear of a European Union collapse. This portion was done democratically and peacefully, but what happens if the European Union does not allow the United Kingdom to break their contractual obligations? This will surely lead to frustration, which possibly could lead to violence. Yes, there would have to be an escalation in tensions, but entities that are competing with the EU globally, such as Russia, China, or the US, may come to the United Kingdom's aid, which gives them support they need to forcefully exit if called for. Now, this is where independence liberals say that their system will maintain the peace. In the example of the European Union, there will now be 27 member nations, but what is to stop the United Kingdom from going after Brussels, which is the seat of the European Union, if they have the support of a world power such as the nations mentioned before? The United Kingdom values the European Union little enough to want to leave after all, and they have come to the realization that an exit is going to burn bridges within the European Union. So if they have the desire, support, and ability to dismantle the EU, what is to stop them? Powers like China and the United States do trade with the European Union, but they trade with each other more. So although the collapse of the European Union would surely cause global issues, they could choose to support the United Kingdom in this matter, especially considering the fact that the United Kingdom is the leading exporter from the European Union and the fourth largest financial contributor. This is an unlikely scenario, but is something to keep in mind, as this is similar to when World War II started and Germany broke the Treaty of Versailles and went against the League of Nations. The second scenario is, what happens if two actors that do not partake in interdependence have a violent altercation? For this one, a recent example is Russia invading Ukraine. This invasion first started in 2014, and to this point has not really been resolved. The European Union has created an outline to resolve this issue, but hasn't acted on it and hasn't made any progress. This is a huge problem because fighting broke out in 2014, and then the situation has sat stagnant, which, according to Fiona Neolin from justsecurity.org, has led to continued tensions in the region, which of course could lead to more violence. This is in the European Union's backyard and still occurring. So this is yet another reason that interdependence cannot ensure world peace. The third scenario is that of a non-state actor rising up and taking arms to fulfill their agenda. ISIS is a perfect example of a non-state actor gaining power through violence. According to the Global Coalition, since 2014, the European Union's contribution to the rising threat of ISIS has been education and attempts to unite the beliefs of the Western world with that of the Middle East. Meanwhile, ISIS has continued to operate and claim attacks on several European cities within the European Union. These actions occur because ISIS does not adhere to global laws or care to. Actors such as this pose a significant threat to world peace and interdependence because they do not fear consequences imposed by coalitions such as the United Nations or ties created by interdependence. This makes a group such as ISIS extra volatile and difficult to manage. ISIS and groups such as ISIS are going to be the most difficult threat that interdependence has to rid to reach world peace. The final scenario that will be discussed is what happens when negotiations break down between interdependent nations. Look at the current tensions between the United States and China, who have a relationship based off of economic interdependence. This recent decline in relations with China would have been unthinkable a few years ago with all the work that the Obama administration had done to create more than economic interdependence with China. According to Matt Shiazova of AsiaSociety.org, the U.S. and China have been working on joint collaborations for scholastic improvement with a focus on STEM programs. Even after these strives towards interdependence, or increased interdependence, there are now concerns over safety between the two nations. This may prove to just be paranoia, but paranoia and fear can lead to premature measures. This is a very real example of peace being broken between two interdependent nations. There's no questioning that interdependence has led to more peaceful relations between states, but nothing is perfect, and the complexity of human nature has to be taken into consideration, like realist thinkers suggest. But the ideas of democratic liberalism, institutional liberalism, and interdependence liberalism do have validity and should be implemented into international relations.